What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 11 of Film Time with Fava, brought to you by FiredUp Network. I'm ready to get right into this, and I hope you at home are too, so let's do it. Thank you, everyone, for watching last week's episode. It was a very fun episode to film with my friend Eric. We talked about the new Demon Slayer movie, Mugen Train. Got some good anime talk in, and that was so much fun, and I'm glad you all watched it as I saw through the views. But this week we got something a little different. I'm going to be talking about a very influential director in film history, which is something I want to do in future episodes when I don't have a movie to review during the week. I want to cover a famous director and some of their most popular films that they've made. And this week I have none other than one of the most famous and influential directors of all time. He's Japanese, and it is Akira Kurosawa. What can I even say about this guy? If you've taken a film class or are a film student in general, you've seen his movies, a few of, if not a lot of his movies in class, whether it be Rashomon, Seven Samurai, Yojimbo, you name it. He's a staple in film classes, and he's a staple for a reason, because he did a lot for the film industry and he inspired a lot of the directors and films we see today. And before I get into, so just to clarify for this episode, I'm going to be talking a bit about Akira himself. And then I'm also going to talk about two of his movies, being Rashomon and also Seven Samurai. But before I get into that, guys, go follow me on social media. On Instagram, I can be found at Film Time with Fava. There I'll be posting clips, funny moments, updates on the show, things like that. And then if you want to follow my personal page, you can go follow that at Favalicious on Instagram. Then if you want to see what's going on in my life and all that. And then also you can follow me on Twitter at A_Fab24. The 24 is, of course, for Kobe. Rest in peace to the legend himself, the Mamba. And now that that is out of the way, let's get into this episode. So first off, just a little bit of background on Akira Kurosawa. He was born in the year 1910 in Japan. Very famous director, as I've stated before. He made films from about the 40s onward, I would say. I think Rashomon, one of the movies I'll be talking about today, is from the late 40s, I want to say. It might even be early 30s. I could be wrong about this, but Rashomon is a very early movie in his film career, but he made movies basically from the 40s on until just about 1990. And the way he did this was incredible. He revolutionized a lot of things in film, and his command of the camera itself and the way he got the shots was much accredited to, he was actually a painter before he began filmmaking. He was originally a painter. So this allowed him to really have that knowledge of the depth of the shot. Having people in the foreground versus the background versus the middle ground. He just had a lot of depth in his shots. His shots were all very beautiful, and he really knew. One thing I noticed when watching his movies recently and when I had to watch them in film class is just the amount of natural light he uses versus studio lighting. And that is, of course, with the time that these came out originally, the technology wasn't really there for intense studio lighting like the advanced ones we see today with all the filters and whatnot and all the precision of the lighting and the color grading. But he really knew how to use the natural lighting. In his outdoor shots, everyone is well lit. It looks almost like crispy 4K the way these things are lit. As the kids today might say, his movies were lit. Yeah. But he was just a great director, made so many iconic movies throughout his time, a lot of which were samurai based in the past of Japan, which is a very cool time period to base a movie on, especially with the action he portrayed in them. And yeah, another thing was his fight choreography is amazing, especially considering that you back then you couldn't really have like the special effects of today where you can easily make it look like someone is getting diced up by a samurai sword. He had to do it more realistically. You couldn't have the blood packs or anything like that. So at times it does look a little shaky. It looks like it's guys fake slashing each other with swords, but the choreography with which they do that is incredible, and that is much accredited to the director and filmmaker of these movies, Akira Kurosawa. And honestly, if you watch interviews with any director, a lot of times they will always talk about Akira Kurosawa and their list of favorite directors, favorite movies, all that kind of stuff. I was watching one with Spike Lee because I'm actually making a list right now of 100 movies I want to watch. And to find those 100 movies to put on the spreadsheet of the ones I want to watch, of which I've watched 3 so far, 2 of which were Akira Kurosawa movies for this video, for the show rather. Yeah, for that list, I watched videos of there was a video on YouTube of directors giving their lists of their favorite movies, and all of them basically had Akira Kurosawa on there. Spike Lee had quite a few on his. And then I watched videos of actors talking about their favorite movies. A lot of them said Rashomon, which is one of the movies, and also Seven Samurai, which I'll be talking about today. But I think that just really shows what an impact Kurosawa has had on the film industry, even if through mainstream audiences, he's not very well known. If you were born later on, like myself, like I didn't even know who he was until I got into university and took film courses. But I'm glad I do know about him now. And I will also say that watching these movies now, I shouldn't say post school, I'm still in school, but having to watch them in class where you are forced to watch them versus watching them for my own enjoyment, I definitely enjoyed them more the second time viewing. It was a lot more enjoyable having the free will to watch them versus being forced to in class. But now that that's out of the way, let's get into the movies themselves. So I want to start off by talking about Rashomon, and this is the more tame of the two, and not like a ton of action in this one, but when it does have the action, it nails it pretty well. So basically, Rashomon is the story of these 3 men who are at an abandoned sort of old style Japanese building during a giant rainstorm. It's just like huge piles of rain coming down on them. Looks like a lake dropping out of the sky, that kind of stuff. But yeah, these 3 guys are at this old abandoned building. I shouldn't say building, structure. We'll say structure. And one of them is a priest. One of them is a woodcutter, and the other one, like a lumberjack, and the other one is a beggar. And basically, the beggar shows up, and these 2 men, the woodcutter and the priest, are talking about how they've kind of lost all faith in man and humanity itself, because they were involved in this police questioning sort of trial thing for this man who had died in the woods. So basically, the whole film is about them retelling each person's side of the story, and it's shown through the testifying of each person involved in the actual killing situation, like all the suspects and the witnesses. So the witnesses are I guess you could say he's a bandit, and that's the bandit guy. He's actually played by Toshiro Mifune, I think that's how you say his name, and he was actually an actor in a lot of Kurosawa's movies. I think they said I looked it up, I think he was in about 15 or 20, but he's in both of the ones I'm going to be talking about today, Rashomon and Seven Samurai. And this is one of his first movies with Kurosawa, and he plays the bandit in this, and he plays it so well. He's really good. He's funny in the role. He's intense when he needs to be. It's awesome. But yeah, so this movie basically shows the whole story is that there's a bandit, there's a lady who is like rich, a very well-off lady, and then her husband who is pulling her along on a horse. And basically the husband is the one that dies, but there's the bandit, the lady, the woodcutter who witnesses when he's out in the woods the murdering of this guy, and then also the, I guess, spirit of the husband who actually died comes in through like a witch doctor who shows up at the testifying kind of hearing thing. I know this probably sounds weird if you haven't watched this movie, but I swear this movie is incredible. So basically they all tell their stories. It ends up that the woodcutter wasn't really telling the truth because he didn't want to cause any trouble by telling the whole story. So he starts off by just saying that he found the dead body, but then it sort of evolves into that he saw the bandit kill the man against his own will because the woman wanted her husband dead, all this. Then when the dead man comes through, the witch doctor, and tells his story of his thing, he actually tells that he killed himself because his wife had like basically said that she would leave him for the bandit, and he was just so heartbroken that he took his own life. So that's another story that is told. And then the bandit tells the story that the man's wife had killed him. So basically everyone's saying that someone else killed the husband, I mean. And that's why the woodcutter and the priest are just saying how much faith they've lost in humanity, that no one can just tell the truth, you know. And it really relates actually to modern society where we see all the fake news media. I shouldn't say the fake news. Obviously, Trump made that a big thing with fake news, but honestly, fake news is a real thing. You really got to be careful where you are getting your news from. That just really shows in this movie. You know, you really can't trust anyone, and that's the truth. You know, humanity is evil and is seen through this movie. But what I love about this movie, I'll get to more things I love about this movie, is the ending. And in the end, even after all this, we see a baby in the building where they're all telling these stories, an abandoned baby. And the beggar goes up to the baby and immediately just tries to take all the valuables that was left with it. But then the woodcutter says, no, I'm going to take this baby and I'm going to raise it. I have 6 children. What's one more? And, you know, it kind of shows at the end, like, yeah, you know, humanity is kind of messed up. There's a lot of bad out there, but there is some innocence. There is some good in the world. And the woodcutter, he may just be trying to atone for the fact that he did lie before the judge earlier in the film, but it does kind of have that bookend where, yeah, things are great, but there's still a sliver of good out there. And that's what I love about this movie. It makes it kind of a feel good film at the end, ends it off on a good note. But let's get into some of the positives of this movie. There's really no negatives in this movie, but as I said before, Kurosawa uses natural lighting so well. This whole movie is filmed outside, so there's no actual studio lighting used, but you wouldn't be able to tell. Everyone's always well lit, and he actually uses the sunlight as a plot device, which I really liked. When they're in the forest, the woodcutter sees the light just barely shining in through the trees up top in the forest. Like, just sometimes not even the light will get in, and that kind of just shows, you know, the light of humanity, if you would, the truth refusing to be shown. And that's what at first I thought, could that be what it's trying to convey? But then through watching videos about it, I realized that that is exactly what he was trying to convey through that. So yeah, just little things like that, just using that natural lighting as a way to show something so like well, not obscure because it isn't obscure to the plot, but like you wouldn't at first you just think, oh yeah, it's a well lit scene, but you dig deeper and you see these little things that Kurosawa hides in the movies, and it's just really great to see. And it's actually been really helpful for me writing the script I'm writing right now. I submitted it to a contest recently. Desolation Succubus coming soon. Um, but I have a plot device in my script where as the character is further gets closer to death, the lighting in the film gets brighter throughout to show that he's going into the light. And then when he finally, the main character, spoiler alert, does die, the lighting cuts out and it's black to represent that he is now passed on. And I think lighting can be used as a great plot device, and Kurosawa uses it expertly here. His shots are incredible. One thing I really liked is in the, I shouldn't even call it a courtroom because it's outside. He, during the hearing, I guess, or the interrogation of the witnesses, he never has the interrogator speak. He basically has the characters act as if they are responding to a question of the interrogator. Like when the woodcutter's talking, he's like, "Oh, where was I when this happened?" Like he's like, "Oh, you're asking me this." We never hear the question asked, so it almost feels like as if we, the audience, are the interrogators of these witnesses, which really makes us feel involved and made me feel involved, and really, you know, helps you get more into the movie. And I really like that aspect. Yeah, I like it when the film brings the audience in like that. And yeah, just the performances in this movie. As I said, Toshiro Mifune, he is amazing. He is the king of facial expressions. I watched a whole compilation on YouTube of how he speaks you just through his face. I think it was called the language of facial expressions, and it was just this guy. And yeah, his face just speaks way louder than words. I know they say pictures speak louder than words, or I think that's pictures. No, actions speak from a picture. What am I? I'm thinking of some quote about a picture. Picture is worth 1,000. Anyways, actions speak louder than words, and no greater example than this man's face because he is just conveying every emotion through his face. All the characters really do this. The woman, the husband in the movie, they do it. The woodcutter who actually appears again in the next movie I'll be talking about, Seven Samurai, he does this as well. And I'm gonna be honest, when I first saw this movie in first year university, I just thought, oh yeah, it's just some old movie. It's all right. But it's like I said before, I was forced to watch this movie in class. Now that I'm watching this movie, having my own free will to watch it and actually wanting to sit down and pay attention and take notes on this movie while I watch it, I can really appreciate it more. And I really did appreciate it more. Yeah, it's incredible. The costume design is amazing. It feels like straight out of old time Japan. I think when I looked it up, it said it was 16th, 17th century. It takes place around the same time as The Last Samurai. I think a bit later, probably. So probably 17th century. But yeah, Kurosawa nails it. And this is one of his earliest movies. So it just shows how great he was even early on. And as I said, he was a painter. Like the levels created and all of the shots in this movie are also amazing. Oh, sorry guys. I have stitches in my leg. I'm not gonna get into it, but I had a little accident. I shouldn't say stitches. I got a couple, just two. But had a little accident on the weekend. But we're still gonna do the podcast. Got a little cut on my hand. Can't see it. It's like who cares? Anyways, back to this. Yeah, you really see the levels he creates. Some shots of the place at the beginning, which is called the abandoned building they're in at the beginning, is called Rashomon. That's how the film got its name. We see this great shot of the priest and the woodcutter just sitting in this big open canopy area. That shot's amazing. All the shots in the woods as the woodcutters walking are awesome. Oh, one last thing I want to talk about with this movie, his the music he uses, the compositions. I've noticed that Kurosawa does this amazing job of lining up the movement of the characters with the music. A film I'm not going to talk about today, but one that does this very well is Yojimbo. If I had to explain Yojimbo, it's basically like a samurai western sort of thing. And we actually had to analyze clips from this movie during first year film in our intro to film class. And he like lines up the drum beats with the characters walking, and there's like these like cymbals, like these hi-hats hitting as the characters walk too. And he lines up the movement of the characters so well with the instruments. But then also he um what is he gonna Oh, yes, 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 yes. So the way he kind of transitions the music from like he'll have like a little happy, just some nice music to go in the background, and then all of a sudden like the music itself, rather than switching the music completely, it'll transition into a more intense orchestral number instead. And that really works well because you kind of hear the twang in the music start to change subtly, and you're like, oh, what's this? Is the mood changing? And then it does, and then the music really builds. It helps a lot, and he uses a lot of unnatural tones as well. Mainly in Seven Samurai, there's this reoccurring sound that I'll get to. But back to Rashomon, let's finish off Rashomon here. Amazing film. I probably shouldn't even be like rating Rashomon because it is a masterpiece. I'm gonna give it a 4.5, like obviously because I just can't give out fives all willy nilly. But this thing is amazing. Like, I'm gonna up it to like a 4.7 because Rashomon, primo stuff. If you haven't seen it, go out and watch it now. Yeah, it's a masterpiece. It's well known. Me giving it, my score is arbitrary. I'm just some guy making a film show. Like I have no business creating Rashomon or any Kurosawa film for that matter. But yeah, I give it upper 4.5 to 5 rating. It's incredible. Highly recommend if you haven't seen it. But now let's get into the other Kurosawa movie I watched in preparation for this. I shouldn't say in preparation because Rashomon I'd seen before, but Seven Samurai is the next one I'm going to talk about. And that is one I actually hadn't seen before, which is surprising because it's arguably Kurosawa's most popular film, I'd say. And there's a reason for that because it is an epic. Yeah, it's pretty epic, but it's more of a war film. And it follows a very nice story. You know, you start out, the whole point of the story is that it takes place during the Japanese Civil War in the 16th century, and these villages are being terrorized by these hordes of bandits. And we follow one village of farmers who has been terrorized by a group of bandits who continuously steal their rice, their barley, their food, their money, basically all their resources, and leave them with the bare minimum just so they can basically harvest more and then they can steal it again. But the whole story is that these farmers are finally like, hey, we can't live like this anymore. We're all gonna die if these bandits like keep stealing our food. So they attempt to enlist the help of samurai to help their village, but they can't pay them. So their only offer for them is basically rice. Is the only food they can give them. So one thing leads to another. They find their samurai. They find one samurai who is played by the same guy who played the woodcutter in Rashomon. This guy is amazing because in Rashomon the woodcutter he plays is very very subtle and almost pathetic in a way. But in this, he's this like hardened, grizzled veteran samurai. We see him like at the very beginning. It sets the tone as he saves this child from being a hostage in a barn, and he's just shown to be this very skilled swordsman, samurai combo kind of thing. I shouldn't say combo. Samurais are all swordsmen, but so they find him. He enlists the help of some other samurai, and eventually they get their 7 samurai, hence the title of the film, to help protect this village against the next attack by the bandits. And yeah, I honestly, every part of this movie was just really fun to watch. I honestly especially love the beginning when they were getting this group together. I felt like they were like rounding up the Avengers for some reason. But yeah, just seeing this hunt for them finding the samurai, just like seeing these hopeless farmers just begging on their hands and knees for these samurai to even have a chance of saving their village from these ruthless bandits. It was really powerful. And the movie only got more powerful as it went on, as we see the samurai helping train the villagers to help fight the bandits, because obviously 7 swordsmen aren't going to defeat this horde of bandits on their own. They need help, and they help train the farming community. And we see these people grow from these pathetic just farming folk who are scared of everything. They've basically given up on life. Like at the very beginning, we see some of these farmers saying we all just need to die, like life sucks right now, all this. And these are people with children around like saying this. And we see them evolve into a powerful group of people who, spoiler alert, help defeat the group of bandits. And also the cast of this movie, I mentioned the woodcutter is back from Rashomon as the head samurai, but also Toshiro Mifune returns. He's the guy that I mentioned that was in a lot of Kurosawa movies. And I heard a rumor that this actor was actually just not even an actor before Kurosawa discovered him. He was just kind of I don't know if he was just a family man or if he was working a factory or something, but Kurosawa discovered him and really jump-started this man's career. And he had a long career in Japanese film. He's one of the most famous Japanese actors ever. And as I said, his facial expressions are incredible, and they're incredible once again here. But here he plays a similar character. He's not a bandit, but he's kind of like a rebel. He claims to be a samurai, but he's actually just like a former farmer kind of thing, who just like likes swords and is pretty crazy. But yeah, he joins the gang too in this, and he becomes one of the 7 samurai that are going to protect this village. Once again, the cinematography, this is Kurosawa. We shouldn't be surprised. He uses the natural lighting as always. And even in some scenes, he just uses the light of a fire to kind of convey the darkness of the scene, or, kind of keep it more emotional and tight knit with that fire and just to light the characters around it. And he's also not afraid in this movie to touch on some touchy subjects. One of the samurai who's the woodcutter guy's apprentice, he has a sexual relation with one of the villagers' daughters. And we see this woman by her own father being called, excuse my language, a slut. That's my one swear for this. But yeah, and then we see her just being berated for doing this act, which is something that humans it's just a natural human act, and she's an adult too. But yeah, we see her berated by her father, and then the woodcutter, the head samurai, he has to come in and be like, "Hey, listen, like they're adults. They can do that. We're all going through a lot right now, but this really isn't important. What's important is that we protect this village." And it may not seem like a big moment in the movie at the time, but at the time this movie was made, talking about that kind of stuff in film was very taboo. This movie was from, I think, this movie, I want to say the 50s this movie came out. I think it was 54, I want to say. But yeah, talking about that stuff in film at the time in general is kind of taboo. So seeing Kurosawa not afraid to do that was very cool. And besides that kind of stuff there, yeah, back to the cinematography. So the shots in this movie, incredible, as I said. My favorite shot is actually the last shot of this movie after the battle is finished. So the battle, I'll get to that. The battle is incredible. But after the battle is finished, spoiler alert, 4 of the samurai have died at this point. So there's only 3 left. It's the woodcutter, his apprentice, and the bald dude. Honestly, that was the guy that I kind of knew the least about throughout the movie. He was just kind of there. But he's one of the ones that survives, and you just see this the 3 samurai at the bottom of this hill, and at the top of the hill we see the 4 mounds of dirt that the other samurai are buried under with their swords stabbed on top of each. And it's this really beautiful shot. It's amazing to look at. But then while they're doing that, you see some of the villagers like running happily in the background. And the head samurai guy, he's like, "We suffered a defeat today, but they suffered a victory. Like, we can't forget the defeat that we suffered even through this victory." Because they win, they defeat the bandits, but in the process, they lost over half of the samurai that were there. So it's really a bittersweet ending because we're happy for the farmers, but then the samurai, we know they had a lot of loss that day, and more negative than good for them personally. Obviously, they succeeded in their goal, but at what cost? And that's a question that Kurosawa gives the audience at the end. Like, was it worth it? But let's touch on the main part of the film, which is the fight with the samurai, the villagers, and the bandits. And that is done really well. As I said, the special effects of the time, the visual effects, the practical effects. The practical effects were really good. We see a lot of burning huts and buildings and stuff. You can tell they're just done on site as they were back then. Nothing much to say there. Burning buildings, a-okay. Obviously in movies only. But yeah, the fight choreography was really good. Like, Kurosawa was always good at not like over dramatizing the fights. Like, he made them look realistic. Like, this looked like if a bunch of random villagers who were trained for like a couple weeks were given wooden spears and we're just told, "Hey, yeah, kill some bandits." Like, they looked very rough. And even the swordsmen themselves, like, they weren't like, "Oh, so graceful." I mean, they were in a way because they are portraying samurai, but like, it wasn't pretty. It looked like a real fight. And I think that's good that they were that realistic with it. And especially now where you see these over dramatized fights, whether it be in the MCU, whether it be in Star Wars, things like that. It's nice to see just these like almost rough cuts. Like you can tell some of these were first takes, Clint Eastwood style, baby. But yeah. Oh, and then once again, I mentioned the music earlier. The music in Seven Samurai was also amazing. I said it was a little more unorthodox, and through by that I meant one of the main musical things in the movie. It almost sounds like someone like a zombie groan, but it's like it's like a sound like that, but it's like this really dark sound. It plays whenever there's like loss present or whenever there's danger nearing or whenever just something doesn't feel right in the movie. This sound plays and it really gets under your skin. Like it really does its job well. So once again, the music and yeah, just the music, the actual music they use is also very good. As I said, he really blends it well from feeling to feeling, genre to genre in the movie. Uh, yeah, the characters. One thing I will note is that a couple of the samurai I didn't really care for. It's not that I didn't care for them. It's just like some of them had more development than others, and that happens a lot when you have seven or more main characters. Like in the Avengers movies, we care about all of them because we've had those 20 or so movies to learn about these characters. But in Seven Samurai, we're meeting all seven of these guys for the first time in this movie. So there's going to be some that are a bit underdeveloped. But even the ones that were underdeveloped, like they weren't unlikable at all. And that's something that he did great. Obviously, Toshiro Mifune, his facial expressions really carried his character. He's kind of the rebel of the group, and it was really sad to see his character meet his end in the end of this movie. But he did get the final blow on the leader of the bandits after getting shot by a musket. Yeah, there is muskets in this movie. It's not just straight swords. After getting shot point blank by a musket, he keeps going, stabs the leader of the bandits, wins the fight for the boys. But yeah, no, this is also a very good movie. I'm trying to think if I've forgotten anything. Oh yeah, costume design A1 looks straight out of the Japanese Civil War. I totally know what that looks like. Definitely not joking there. Uh yeah, Seven Samurai is definitely a movie I'm gonna go back and watch. It is a long watch though, so be prepared for that. It's 3.5 hours long. So I did need an entire night to get through it just because I had to eat dinner and all that too. But yeah, I definitely recommend watching Seven Samurai and Rashomon. Out of which one I like better, I think Rashomon overall. Honestly, I can't decide because Rashomon I liked the length better because it's only an hour and a half. But I feel like with Seven Samurai, with that many characters, you do need that long movie to introduce those characters, show all the training, and then show that big final fight. Yeah, I can't decide which one I like better, but I will also give Seven Samurai between a 4.5 and a 5. Like this movie was also incredible. I can't wait to watch more Kurosawa movies in the future. I want to rewatch Yojimbo because that is also a really good one. That was the Kurosawa samurai western I was talking about earlier. We had to watch that one in film class as well, and I remember liking it. So I want to watch it again. And it also has a sequel called Sanjuro, which is the main character of Yojimbo, who is also played by Toshiro Mifune. Um, yeah, so I guess the moral of this whole episode, and the reason why I wanted to talk about this during a week when there wasn't a film to review. Yeah, I was looking at the releases for this week. It was nothing special, but yeah, the reason why I wanted to go over this is because I feel like a lot of people don't know who Akira Kurosawa is. Like I told my parents I was going to be talking about Akira Kurosawa this week on the show, and they were like, "Who's that?" They didn't know who it is, who it was. I mean, so I feel like I really want to tell some people about Akira Kurosawa and who he was and why you should definitely watch his movies. Don't be afraid that they're in another language and that you have to read the subtitles. Like whoever like do reading. We can read words. Just do it. It's worth it. Pretend you're watching anime. I don't know. No, but yeah, Akira Kurosawa was a real one. Won the Academy Award for Best Foreign Feature Film. Should have won just the Academy Award for Best Film, probably. But as we see, it hasn't really happened that much until recently with Parasite, and was I don't know if Nomadland was foreign. I could be wrong. But yeah, we saw that with Parasite when Parasite won Best Feature Film. And yeah, I hope that that continues on because there's a lot of great international films out there. One that I really want to watch soon, Portrait of a Lady on Fire. My friends Evan and Will, they're always recommending that one. So that's on my list of films to watch. I have a list of 100. I'm three in. I've watched Rashomon, Seven Samurai, and a movie from the 30s called It's a Gift, which is a really funny comedy, actually. I was surprised. Usually, old timey comedies, I'm not a huge fan of. I feel like the comedy is really dry, but this one was great. I'll probably talk about that one in the future if I do a list of comedy movies, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to just watching some older movies on this list because the majority of them, I think the first 50 on the list are all before the year 1970. And then from there on, it's like ranging from the year 1970 to the present day. So I'm really excited to watch a lot of those older movies because I feel like that's one part of my film knowledge that's been lacking a bit. Because I've only really watched a lot of older movies through class or just Planet of the Apes and stuff like that, or like Rocky. But none of the really old, like good movies, like Akira Kurosawa, for instance, is something I never would have watched had it not been for film class or just being interested in film. Like no normal just person watches Akira Kurosawa movies, to my knowledge. Anyways, I'm rambling at this point. Moral of the story: watch Akira Kurosawa movies. Watch movies in general, guys. They're just so much fun to watch. Get lost in them. It's just a great medium, and it's the reason why I have this podcast to talk about this amazing medium of media. So yeah, in conclusion, guys, I'm Anthony Fava. Go follow me on social media, as I stated earlier. Instagram at Film Time with Fava, and also at Favalicious. Twitter at _Fab24. Let me know what you guys think about each episode. Comment down below on whatever platform you're on. Like this, watch it, recommend it to your friends. I want to expand this thing, man. I want to get more people on the film grind. I want to get more people watching Akira Kurosawa. But yeah, that's going to just about do it for me today, guys. Next week, we got episode 12. I'll let you know on Instagram what we're going to be talking about. I'll keep it a little surprise for now. But I'm Anthony Fava. And as always, guys, this is as real as it gets. I will see you guys next week.